Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 5, and today we're taking a look at the 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air. So we're continuing to look at older cars that we've not reviewed for on any previous Forza game. Started with the Ford Lotus Cortina, and now we're trying out this 50s American classic. So yeah, this is part of the second generation that was produced between 1955 and 1957. It's not a very long production run there, and yeah, this had the 2-speed Power Glide automatic gearbox, which is a very luxurious, very easy gearbox to get along with, and offers a great deal of comfort, and certainly helps detach you from the overall driving experience. But yeah, hardly makes it the most sporty of cars, despite its power plant and amount of power that's got going on. But yeah, the looks of the vehicle are amazing. You can see why it's such an iconic looking vehicle. Easily one of the most iconic things of the 50s, I guess you could say. And yeah, really rather nice interior, even though this is Chevrolet, so it's not the the most luxurious car brand from the time, but still a very nice looking interior. And yeah, got plenty of room in the back, as you no doubt can see. And yeah, full size spare wheel, and yet you've still got a huge amount of boot space. Now, can you guess where the fuel filler cap is on this car? Because I didn't know this was a thing, because I've never looked at this car in Forza Vista before. So, can you guess where it is? You're quite wrong. If you guess wrong, that is, it's there. Which is something that I've never seen on another car before. So, yeah, I was really rather surprised to see that there, to be honest. So, yeah, which is an interesting design feature, along with the rear fins and the white wall tyres and the white rooftop and the really nice looking front end. Does look quite similar to the Plymouth Fury from around the same time, which also in red with a white roof has the same kind of fins and the same kind of details down the side and the like. But unlike that car, this doesn't have quite the powerful engine, as it has a 4.6 litre V8 engine, which is the Super Turbo Fire engine with 4-barrel carburetor, which produces 220 horsepower and 300 pounds-feet of torque, which is a decent amount. And this certainly does way less than the likes of the Plymouth Fury at 3,337 pounds, so it's not got anywhere near the kind of weight to haul around. It's a couple £100 less, but yeah, that's nowhere near enough for a car of this size and weight overall, to be honest, especially given it's got that 2-speed gearbox to deal with as well, which really doesn't make the most of the horsepower and torque that it's got going on. But regardless, it's a fantastic looking car. It's an icon of the 50s for a lot of reasons, styling wise mainly, but especially since it's the first V8 engine that Chevrolet had released since 1917 with the Series D. So for whatever reason, they've gone nearly 40 years in between actually making a V8. Not sure why, because V8s have been quite popular by Ford and the like in the 40s, so yeah, bit of a surprise in that regard, but still, fantastic looking car. So let's get out onto the open road and see what it can do there. Right, so this is hardly the most powerful of cars, so I'm not sure how quick it's going to go before we hit the speed camera, but we can only find out by doing it. So let's get out there and see how quick we can go. So yeah, first gear is actually pretty punchy. Second speed does eventually peter out a little bit too quickly for my liking. As you can see, it's struggling once we get to about 90 or 100 mile an hour. Only 104 at the speed camera, which for a 220 horsepower car with 300 pounds-feet of torque isn't all that much, to be honest. But then again, it does have that gearbox going against it, and it's hardly the most aerodynamic of vehicles. So you can understand why there, and obviously it's raining a little bit, so it might have had a bit of an impact. But yeah, let's get to the racetrack and see what we can do around there. So yeah, not the sportiest of vehicles by any means, but you can see why someone would pick the 2-speed Power Glide, because it's just a very smooth gearbox. It changes really rather nicely, and obviously it's only going to change once when you're accelerating. And yeah, it's a very luxurious option to not have to deal with changing gears or have multiple gears going through. But yeah, because the Plymouth Fury has more power while having a a 3-speed gearbox that makes that the better option in terms of sportiness, but still, we're in D class, and yeah, as you can see, the stats aren't all that great. The handling is decent for a car of this type, and the top speed is fairly good, but yeah, the acceleration and launch are pretty poor, and just like with the Plymouth Fury, in fact, the brakes are really rather poor as well. In fact, I'll show you against the Fury itself. So there's the stats for the Bel Air, and there's the stats for the Fury. So as you can see, it's got more top speed, but less handling because of the extra weight, but more acceleration, better launch, but the same woeful brakes. But yeah, I like the name Bel Air. It does sound like a luxurious, kind of like upper class kind of name. Just say Bel Air. Whereas Fury just sounds more sporty, more aggressive, more youthful. Whereas this sounds a little bit more classy. So yeah, you can see why they'll be going for different kind of parts of the market. No doubt about that. But let's nonetheless see what this car sounds like, and then we'll talk about it some more. So yeah, it's hardly got the most exciting sounding V8 ever, but it's not the worst sounding engine either. And yeah, the acceleration is fairly decent despite the power being on the lower side of things. It can do 0 to 60 in 7.3 seconds, 0 to 100 in 19.6 seconds, and it will go to a top speed of 131 miles an hour. Now, despite the power difference and this having a worse gearbox than the Fury, it's only about 0.2 of a second in it in terms of 0 to 60 time. But yeah, the Fury is far faster to 100 by 4 seconds, and that can do 12 mile an hour extra at the top end. So yeah, I'm comparing it to the Fury purely because they look similar, especially in these this red and white paint, and because they're both rear-wheel drive, both V8 powered, both luxurious kind of cars. But yeah, the Fury is definitely my favourite of the two. But if it wasn't for the film Christine, I don't think most people would remember the Fury quite as much as they do nowadays. Whereas the Bel Air seems to have, transcended not really being in pop culture all that much. Obviously, I think there was a version of this used in a film called American Graffiti, but that was in black, and it was a far more powerful car, and yeah, wasn't quite the same as this, but still, it's definitely a car that seems to have lived on despite not being well used in movies or in any real well-known iconic movies. Even though the Bel Air was in that film, it wasn't part of the poster, it wasn't effectively the villain of the film like in Christine. So yeah, but still, you can see why it's lived on because of the looks and the time and period that it was in. Handling wise, well, it's as you'd expect. It's quite wallowy. The suspension is extremely wobbly at times, a lot of body roll, does seem to understeer at times as well, and yeah, the tyres don't offer all that much in the way of grip, but it's not gonna kill your kind of handling. It's just you've got to be wary of its limitations, which are extremely quite low, but still you can have some fun with it, as you can see by sliding it out, and it does seem to handle it alright, but it does wobble around a lot, as you can see. So yeah, typical of the time though for the handling. The Fury is no better in that regard, to be honest, and in some aspects it's even worse because of the extra weight that it's got going on, which really doesn't help its suspension. But still, classic car and an icon for reasons of just of the time that it was out and how it captured the public's love of the American classic looking vehicle. And yeah, design wise it is spectacular. Just a shame that everything underneath isn't quite as good, but yeah, you can see why you know, how it enabled Chevrolet to go further with this kind of engine and overall design. As like I said, this is the first V8 they made in 40 years, and yeah, as a starter for a V8, it's pretty good. But obviously they would build on that greatly, especially with the Corvette that they would eventually put the small block V8 in, that this was the basis for. So yeah, great car in design terms, but not quite the thrill a minute as you might expect, especially given its engine and general looks. But still, well worth trying out if you've never tried it before. I'm pretty sure most people actually have, but if you haven't, then do so. Nonetheless though, thank you for watching, and I'll see you with the next one. Bye.